Hello, hunters and huntresses. Brian here with Nelson Creek Outdoors, Lucky 7 Cents, and now the premier bulk scent provider for relabeling, Bucket Sense. Last in this a little series of podcast, I don't know what you call it, is videos. Just trying to get some information out. We've talked about odor, chemical detection, pheromones in the previous videos, and we're going to sum it up with a little bit of how you keep deer from detecting your odor, not just attracting them, but keeping them from detecting you. So what are deer detecting in the human to know that they're there? And just like face is part of sense and food sense and all those things, it's smell, olfactory. Now, a lot of what they're smelling actually isn't the human, but the bacteria's work on the human secretions. So as you sweat, you create chemicals that are feeding bacteria, especially under your arms, crotch area, those areas that tend to have most odor. A lot of that is the work of bacteria. And that tends to be volatile odors picked up by the olfactory system, and a deer recognize that from history and just innate knowledge that that's an animal they don't want to be near you because you're a danger to them, and they will avoid it. Beyond that, you also put out specific chemicals, and I don't want to get into that specifics on it, but you do put out specific chemicals that deer have and predators have, or pardon me, prey animals detecting predators, that they can distinguish you from those single chemicals. It's again part of the Jacobs of organ and a little bit different sensory system, more the key and the lock type thing. So you have both going against you. You have natural chemicals coming out of you that unmodified the deer can detect, and then you have other odor contaminants that deer can detect and tell you're there. So how do you get rid of them? Well, first is cleaning. Thorough washing, a good soap. Get in the shower before you go out hunting and remove all the grime and all that. Now, as soon as you're done, it's going to start coming back. So what do? Unscented deodorants to keep that coming down, from sweating or whatever. Although, like, I have in testing right now a product that's a deodorant that doesn't eliminate odor, so to say. It prevents it from forming in the first place. So you use it as a spray in your armpit area, anywhere on your body, safe anywhere, and it will prevent. It'll give you total odor control, stop the new bacteria from producing odors from the 24-hour mark all the way up to 72 hours. It'll reduce odors. So, odor-free at 24 hours, pretty good, and greatly reduced odor all the way up to 72 hours. That's going to be a help. That'll reduce your odor, that bacterial, especially created odor that the deer can pick up. What about odors that are already there, odors you pick up in the field? That's another thing, too. You can pick up gasoline or other odors, French fries at the gas station, whatever you run into as you get to them, will put an odor on you that's unfamiliar to the deer and can spook them. That's where you come into actual odor elimination. And there's ways of doing it. The simplest ways, there's one is you can encapsulate the odor. So it's encapsulated inside another, it falls into another molecule, gets captured in there, and can't be released. Then when it goes to the nose of the animal, they can't detect it because that odor molecule is now surrounded by another molecule that doesn't have an odor. So there's no registration that odor exists anymore. You can also take that odor molecule itself and you can break the bonds in that molecule and destroy that odor. Now that odor can't come back. It's busted. It's gone. It doesn't smell like anything. It's now in its component pieces. That's another way that you can eliminate odor. And the other is, there's other various things you've seen where you can, field scrubs and there's various effects. Again, the bubble marketing gets into that really heavy and how well it really works and all that stuff. But does it work? There's arguments for it. I don't participate in that. My goal is to eliminate the odor first and then destroy any odor that could possibly come on afterward. That's my two things. So the rest of it I find to be a little bit more dubious, less helpful. So that's how you get rid of then the odor that the deer are trying to detect on you. It's a very similar process to attracting them, just kind of the opposite, breaking those molecules apart and keeping them away from the deer's nose. And speaking of that, you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, the only way is to play the wind." As soon as the guy says that's the only thing to do, stop listening to that guy. First, wind is not predictable. We all know this. I mean, how many times have you been in a stand, the wind's in your face, 10 minutes later it's at your back, 10 minutes later it's your... Winds swirl, winds change, especially when we're hunting fronts and everything else that we like to hunt for deer. We're looking for conditions to change. We're anticipating conditions to change, and we're anticipating the movement of the deer in accordance with those changes. Why are we trying to call something a steady state when we're expecting change? That's ludicrous. Now, yes, if you can hunt a stand, if you have the means and the place and all this stuff where you can choose your stand strictly by the wind, do it. It'll help. Wind will blow the stuff into the... But then again, I think a deer is going to come in front of me. He does 90% of the time. And that's when the big buck sneaks in behind me and smells me anyway. Right? So playing the wind is a good idea. The best you can do with playing the wind, just like everything else, playing the wind, do the best you can do, but it isn't the end-all of end-alls. And if people think that is, people that are insistent upon that, nothing else will work, well, again, don't listen to them. They're not telling you the right information. It's a lot about scent density. Now let's get a little gross here. A little fun. We're probably mostly guys watching this, right? Say I'm going hunting with you. Me and you, we're out in the car. We're in the truck. We're heading out to the deer stand, for an afternoon hunt after a nice lunch of venison chili. And I'm driving in there, and my gut's a little churning, and I let one fly in the truck. You are probably going to roll that window down, hang your head out, puke out the window. You are going to be so miserable that I just dumped my butt in that truck with you, that you're going to try to do everything you can to escape. Now, say we're actually not going hunting. Maybe we're going to a basketball game, or we're going to an arena. We get to that arena. I still have the venison chili. Of course, I still have the venison chili. So we go to the arena. We're going to watch this basketball game. And I blast one there at the arena. Now, the guy 6 rows up from us might go, what the hell is that? I don't know. All right. And he goes back to watching the game. Why? Because the volume of the odor didn't fill up the space. Scent density. There wasn't enough to detect for very long, and his reaction was different because of it. The same happens with deer. A deer run into predator sign in the woods. Look at Wisconsin. We got a ton of wolves in the north, and we can get into that discussion. But the deer know the wolves are there, and they smell the wolves. But what are they supposed to do? Every time they smell a wolf, are they just supposed to run wild and start heading? What good would that do them? They don't know necessarily where the wolf is. They don't know how close he is. They don't know. They just smell him and run. Of course not. That's not how that works. They have a brain, and yes, they may be even detecting a specific. And there are chemicals in wolf urine that prey animals can detect. That's another one. But what are they going to do when they smell it? And it all depends. Now, say a wolf is walking down a lane and he pees down this fire lane, and he goes on. 10 minutes later, a buck comes along, walks up on that pee. He knows it's a wolf. I guarantee you he knows it's a wolf. Pee is not all the same. We've covered that. In those cases, he's probably going to rapidly look to leave the area. He smells it. He knows it's strong. He knows it's recent. And he knows what it is. It's time for him to go on high alert. And he's probably not going to just bust out of there. But he's going to move out of there quick along his pre-planned escape routes that he has in his head. And he's going to have his eyes open. Or maybe he literally will turn inside out. Depends on what his recent experience. If he got nipped in the butt by a wolf a couple days ago, he might turn inside out. But that reaction is going to be totally different than, say, 24, 48 hours later, he walks down that lane and he smells that wolf urine. That odor is going to have broken down to some extent. He's still going to be able to identify what it is, but he's also going to know it's aged. So he's going to go, oh, okay, now I'm a little on alert. Yeah, there's still a wolf here, but he's not been here for a while. Or conversely, he didn't pee on this lane. He peed on a lane 100 yards away, and he smelled it 50 yards, 100 yards away, and this deer smelled it. Again, scent density's down. He's not that super close. The deer's reaction to that encounter will be different. He's going to, of course, he might still be a little more cautious, or maybe not, depending on how much he encounters it in his environment. We don't know in every given instance. And that happens with humans too. In farm country, they run into human smell and have way less reaction to it than when I'm in the big woods up north where they don't see a lot of people and then they smell a human and they just boom, now they're gone. Their reaction is different. They have a brain and they make decisions based on their experience. But make no doubt about it, they know that you're there. They know it's a predator. So the idea is if you can knock the scent density down and lower the alarm signal, lower the heat on that alarm signal, let the deer be more comfortable, that is a good thing to do. It's never a bad thing to do. You have reduced it. Even if you have not completely eliminated that deer from detecting that odor, off yourself, we're talking about more in this case, maybe he still smells a little bit of you, but he may think you're 200 yards away rather than the tree over his head. And that's a big difference when you're hunting because, if he thinks you're right there, knows you're right there, he's out of dodge. Whereas otherwise, he's still within range for a while. And that's the other thing. With scent density being lower, the closer that animal can get to you before he can detect you. They do not have this superior sense of, they do have a superior sense of smell test in that they can smell higher or lower scent density than we can. But it's not like there's this magic formula. It's all ratios to us, so what exists for us exists for them. You have to take into account that you can reduce it and you can reduce that reaction. And that's probably the biggest point you can take away. It's not going to be a 100% game. You don't have to make it be a 100% game. You can always just make it better. And that's what I suggest you do. Make it the best you can and do the best you can. Play the wind, reduce the scent. Because, the anecdotal evidence is terrible. You hear this all the time. Like, well, for instance, I peed in a scrape. And then on camera at midnight, a 6-pointer came in and worked that same scrape. Well, great. He's an immature buck under the cover in darkness that knows he never runs into problems with people in the middle of the night. Yeah, he's not that concerned. And then his curiosity, which I hate, curiosity is still also caution. But he'll check it out in the middle of the night. But what you don't know is that you peed in that scrape in the morning. You sat in your stand, 100 yards away, a deer, a 12-point deer, 180 class buck smelled you, and you never saw him. He left Dodge before you even knew he was around. Now, you saw that 6-pointer on the camera later that night, and you think, oh, peed in the scrape is just fine. That buck didn't think so, and you didn't even know he was ever there, and you lost out. So I guess everything, when people talk in absolutes and all that stuff, they're probably talking out to poop all. But there are benefits in the non-absolutes, very strong benefits in the non-absolutes. So when you hear people, you can't fool their nose. Yes, you can. Can I do it 100% of the time, 100% of the way? No. Do I have to? No. If I could, would it still be a fun game to play with the deer? No. And conversely, you can mix that in with playing the wind and other things. And if you, and some of this stuff gets to be nonsensical. I start talking about senses. Well, I shot a deer in a red flannel coat. And, okay, if you want to do that, and you get references to that, those logical fallacies, the appeal to authority. Well, Fred Bear wasn't a scientist guy. He was a promoter of the sport and did a very good job of it. He was an excellent hunter, and he wasn't big about trophies, and he did what he did. Great guy. It doesn't make him an expert on scent or anything like that either. And there are other ways of doing things. So if you want to do the scent route and the high tech and remove your scent, all those things, great. It's a very effective way to hunt. If you want to be more traditional, if you want to shoot, a stick and string, just a basic wooden recurve bow, and that in your dad's flannel jacket that he had from 1922 and all that stuff. Hey, that's great. Traditional archery and all that stuff. I'm all for it. If you want to do your exploration into what makes you happy in the sport, I am happy for you to do that, and I want to hear your experience and sharing that too. Don't insult mine just because it's different than yours. And mine is based on a scientific approach that is proven to work. Yours works for you. Mine works with the science. Both work for each other. we can coexist in the woods and have a really good time hunting together. That's what I think. All right, that should be the end of this for little series initial. I hope that kind of gives you just a basic overview of how the scents work and elimination of scents work. Next time, I'm actually going to do a couple of little product reviews. I just did one, with the little video I had done with the crossbow. I didn't show up on the YouTube channel here, but I did on my Facebook page. And now I've switched broadheads, and I want to talk about that in the next one. All right, you guys have a great day.